It wasn't until my late 30s, early 40s, where I was like, I'm an artist. I come at the world with a sense of curiosity about how things work and how people work together. I learned later in life that was called an artist, and it was really hard for me to own that because everything that I did was similar to things that my family did, but we didn't call ourselves artists. It was just the way that we approached the world. I claim that my family is a bunch of creatives that didn't dare call themselves artists. They didn't dare claim that space. There's stigma with it. Artists are lazy. Artists can't hold on to their money. Artists can't keep a family. Within the culture of my family, they're sort of pushing me to be that person. And so I came into the thinking about being an artist with, I'm going to prove that artists can wear a business suit and artists, can balance a budget. And so I think that was like a lot of my past, other generations sort of pushed me into that. But it really wasn't until 2011 when I went to grad school. I was in my mid-30s. And I just felt like I had to do that to get it out of the way. Just get that terminal degree and finally say, like, I can be an artist. A friend recently said to me, she's like, Kate, your work is all about air. And I was like, oh, you're right. There is this idea of breath and expansion throughout the work. And when you and I first met at the Gardner, it was very much focused on the inflatables, wearables, and things that could expand and contract with the breath, which is tied to meditation for me, and that slowing down, investigating, okay, what is that feeling I'm having right now? How does that connect to the larger world? I believe we all need those spaces to say when we're sad, when we're afraid, and if we aren't saying those and sharing them with each other, we're going to get into a really scary place. So much of my work is about that duality of light and dark. And, there are times when some members of my family are like, are you okay? This work is very dark. And I'm like, yes, because in order to see the bright side, we need to see the dark side, and vice versa. And so that would start to open up conversations about, like, why are you stressed in the world? What is going on personally and globally at a larger level? It's now obvious to me that all of this work, I wanted to start a conversation. And then that now plays out with Now and There. In addition to my work as a visual artist, I focus on sculpture, performance objects, performative objects, and video. I run Now and There. I'm the founder of this, I used to call it a small nonprofit. I think it's now a public art institution in Boston. We focus on every one of Boston's 23 neighborhoods with 4 signature projects and an accelerator program that I'm really excited about, and that supports 4 to 6 local artists in Boston with the skills and sensibilities to make public art, which is a very hard art form. Now and There's mission is to open minds, spaces, and conversations through public art, through fostering artists and the community to co-create these art experiences, which hopefully create a more vibrant and equitable city. I can't do all that in my work. I think it's so unfair to ask public artists to do all of this, be our leaders and role models, and how we should, think about public space and market the work and, engage with the public and be friendly. So I created Now and There to give all those, that back support to artists. So Augment was a sort of 3-part public artwork by Nick Cave. It started as a sculptural installation in the cyclorama. It moved as a procession, the pieces literally on flatbed trucks, as a public parade. I think it's Boston's first ever Joy Parade. And then it ended up at 555 Columbia Road in Dorchester in Upham's Corner. And there it was met with this collage work. When I met Nick, I was like, so what's that one thing that you haven't done yet that you really want to do? And that's what I love, approaching artists that way. And it all came together as he'd never done inflatables before, this was a building that he personally felt needed life. And he also wanted to support his career growth with this thing that he had never done before. So it felt to me like we supported the artist, we fostered artist vision, we supported community engagement, and just a little spark of what this vibrant community is and can be. What gets me so excited about Augment is the question that Nick Cave was asking in it of what brings you joy. Now and There was framing it also as, is it an individual thing or is it a collective thing? Like, can you really have joy as an individual if the collective is suffering? And that does get back into my work. I love setting up conditions. You know, in this work now, I'm working with concrete and asphalt, two things, and a tiny bit of gold leaf and some sort of container. The asphalt comes from, it's found. So that's completely out of my control. And then I'm pouring concrete into containers that I have found. So there's this push-pull of what's in my control and what's out of my control. And I see in that back to the sort of personal, growth aspect of, there are some things that we can control, and there are some things that are completely out of our control. The thing that hasn't happened, that I haven't seen with the pandemic, is any acknowledgement of this collective grief. Someone said to me recently, and I completely agree, they were like, we are all going through with this low-level depression, and we're all learning how to just get by. There have been moments of much-needed outcry, after George Floyd, continued protests, and for racial reckoning, incidents, gun violence. This is a global incident, and we don't understand the ramifications of it yet. I'm starting to think about it like tree rings. If you cut down a tree, you can see the fire damage. The rings are tighter or wider depending on, how much rain and nutrients that tree was getting. And that's where the work with the concrete and the asphalt is saying, now's the moment. Like, every time I pick up a water bottle now, if I don't have my refillable one, that becomes an object that I cast. So I'm trying not to have more than 30, but right now I think there's 25 in here. And so every time I do that, unless I'm, somewhere where I can't bring it back, that now turns into an object that I'm going to have to deal with. But this is literally, pun intended, a concrete way of showing my individual action in the world. And over the course of this pandemic, these are the water bottles that I've used. How collectively is that gonna, magnify over 2, 3, 5 years? Hopefully there's another 40 years of my life. This work for me is very personal about exploring all of that dark underbelly so that I can show up, for other artists, for my teammates, for the general public, to create the moments of joy and togetherness that I think are necessary for our emotional well-being, in these times. So that's a little bit into why I do this work that's very personal and self sort of exploration, and how that supports me being a better person on the other side.